I would have beaten him up, but he's okay, he's a friend of mine, he can go and take these liberties. For the first speaker, I thought that what I kind of recall from Anthony's speech that struck me was, as he had completed his speech in one of his final sentences, were to free up road space for motorized transport. So there was a line in there, and that is always when we have presentations and policy statements from the Transport Bureau, there is always something in there ultimately about making space for motorized vehicles. What stood by me from Sam Chow's presentation was the word dwell time. I guess engineers don't like people dwelling, but if there's one thing that makes good space, and that we all like, is dwelling. We like hanging about, and one thing that makes good space is if people dwell. And if people dwell, the space is good. If people don't dwell, just walk around like they do on these computerized images, then you become an animal, and a rat, a mouse, you become an insect. What we want is the ability for people to dwell. Now let me just go on walkability a little bit. In 1999, we did encourage walking in our transport policy. We picked it up in our policy address, and we announced this precinct study that ended up with those 70 in pedestrianizations. Now you can go to Jordan and see the leftovers of that in the streets. Some red-painted tarmac is kind of the usual outcome of that still left. It was in the precinct study that Townland did, Karen Seddon. These are the problems, and I think that everybody can recognize that those are still very much the problems today that we see in our pedestrian environment. In the 2001 Karen Seddon study, the proposal was, and the solution was, that we have comprehensive integrated pedestrian networks. In 2004, after the Transport Department had taken account of that study, it became comprehensive segregated pedestrian networks. So, just 2001 and 2004, you've got to keep in mind what happened there when the planning department does a study with planners, and then they go to the transport department and says, yeah, we like it, and then they add one word, segregated. Wherever possible, we do grade separated crossings, and there's a clear correlation between the increase in the number of crossings and the reduction in pedestrian accidents. So we not only think that's great to build footbridges, it also we justify to do because fewer people die. Whether this is really scientific, it's the audit commission, they're accountants. We'll have to see. The policy address in 2008, pedestrian schemes covering footbridges, so we're getting more footbridges and escalators. In 2010, I got a letter back from the Secretary of Transport and Housing at that time that she was encouraging walking, and that meant comfortable all-weather walking corridors which obviate the need to walk on the road. So walking can be improved. This like this, yeah? Walking can be improved as long as we get people off the road. It improves the pedestrian safety, it minimizes the short-term motorized trips, we all agree to that, but getting people off the road is policy. In the CE Manifesto 2012, the reliance on transport facilities, we want to reduce that again. We're talking about footbridges and connections and physical infrastructure to get people between the train and the buildings with escalators, walkways, and flyovers. The result is that we now have one footbridge or tunnel for every 2 kilometers of road. I don't think there's any other city in the world that has that density. And we have articles in magazines, people basically explaining that we all hate it. And we knew we hated it because in 2003, the government did a census survey on pedestrian environment, and 70% of the people said, I want to walk at street level. I don't want to use the footbridge, I don't want to use the subway, I want to use the street level crossing. Actually, the police tells us too. The police tells us that pedestrians ignore the footbridges and they cross over the roads, climb over the planters. This is normal human behavior when you try to do what you like to do. This is the Census Report 2003. Designing Hong Kong, we did a survey, and again, it comes back 76% of the people prefer street level crossings. over the subways, especially when the weather is nice. So we ask people under different weather conditions, but when it rains, people want the tunnel. So we're very happy to climb in a tunnel and up a staircase if it rains, and we're happy to use the subways and the footbridges, and then we go down to 20% of the people that actually like to be in the street. But when it's hot, you have people, about 40% are willing to walk the road, but otherwise you want to walk in the subways and footbridges. So we're willing to pay the price of climbing upstairs and going downstairs when the weather is not very pleasant. We also asked what are the choice factors in terms of your walking route. Well, obvious, short, easy, less crowded, attractive are some of the key ones. We also checked for those people that do want to use the tunnel and the bridge, why do they want to do that? You feel safer, better air, and less crowded, so we have some choice. Conclusions from our side is really that if we offer the route choice, if you offer the possibility for walking at street level and have an opportunity to take a subway or a footbridge, and it can be well combined, and you're not forced up and down, then that is good. So if we can organize in Hong Kong life to be like that, then things are good. Unfortunately, life is mostly like this, which is not very good. Now, how do we get to this away from that is something that we should today think about in our planning. So we did try to analyze some of the districts. For that, we had needed some tools. So we looked for a mapping exercise to analyze the districts. If you have overlapping infrastructure and you try to map the pedestrian environment, it becomes extremely difficult to do. You can try to make the places where pedestrians can walk white, the roads gray. You can identify subway levels in another color and upper levels in another color. It obviously doesn't work. You can ask Solomon of the Hong Kong U, and then he gives you this. Well, that obviously doesn't work to help you to understand, but it's, you know, it's kind of interesting. Everybody in the States love his book about the cities without ground in Hong Kong, but it's a pretty useless tool to analyze or to kind of map it out. It's kind of a nice piece of art. So I have to try to come up with a new system. We asked the transport department, and they gave us this. Now, I'm not sure if you can figure out where you can walk and where you can't walk, and how to get up and down. So you get an indication of where the footbridges are being built and the subways are being built, but I'm not sure it really tells you walkability. So we came up with this very childish design model and mapping exercise. The red roads are roads you can't cross. Now, this is Tsim Sha Tsui. You can immediately see from the green where you can walk what the environment is. You've got a lot of open space, public space, parks in Tsim Sha Tsui East, lots of small little alleys, lanes in this part of Tsim Sha Tsui. Things get very large and long pedestrian roads here. You can't cross. You can cross intermittently. I think you're getting from this very childish presentation get a much better feel of what the actual environment is in Tsim Sha Tsui. And then we can say, okay, where is our subway network? So we marked our subway network in this yellow lobby design. This is actually quite comprehensive. When you think about it, if you want to get from the Nathan Road to the waterfront, you can also see immediately that for some reason government and Cheung Kong never got an agreement on this little tunnel that they should have built here, which is on the plans, but they never built it because they can't agree on the land premium. But of course, that would help everybody a lot to get to the waterfront. And we can see that in Tsim Sha Tsui, our elevated network is basically non-existent. You can get from the waterfront onto a park, and then that's it. Get into Tsim Sha Tsui East. They are now starting to connect a little bit better. Sino is investing some money. You can get into wharf land, wheelock land here in this building. But it basically is non-existent. So if we want to fix things in Tsim Sha Tsui, at the street level, we've got to get a crossing back from Salisbury Road, across Salisbury Road, or we got to fix that link in the subways. We want to get that back if you look at the demands. We look at Central. Again, we ask Highways Department to give us a mapping of their pedestrian connections, and we got this. It's a very technical kind of linkage drawings, but it doesn't really give you a sense of things are working or not working. So we did the childish one. Again, you can see clearly, again, the quality of the walking environment, small streets, large blocks, impossible to cross, and especially if you try to cross at this line, it suddenly becomes entirely impossible to cross roads at any time. The subway system is actually minor. There is not a very extensive network. We've got an extensive elevated network. Very well connected all the way to Admiralty, all the way back through Central. So this is what everybody celebrates as being a fantastic alternative network, and it works well. The only reason why it works well is because this was led by a developer that owns a lot of buildings there, and it wasn't led by the MTR. The MTR feeds you in and out of their station. This developer wants you in and out of their buildings. Because these buildings are placed throughout the district, it became a district network by accident. Not, that because government planned it that way. So we were lucky in this case. So the question is, how can we emulate this kind of planning in other districts? How can we make sure that this happens in Mongkok, that this happens in Tsim Sha Tsui, that this happens in Causeway Bay? So that we can all celebrate our second network. If you overlay some walking Zaya lines, the obvious thing that needs to be fixed is the MTR has to allow us to walk through this tunnel without having to pay money. Then we have a subway connection from the waterfront to the hinterland. But that will be an additional capacity on that Zaya line. They can't do it. Fire Services Department probably won't allow them to do it, but maybe they can. Let them think about it. In Chunwan, very different environment. Again, high capacity roads. Most of them entirely, you can't cross them, but these high capacity roads, they're quite intermittent. So you can cross 5 minutes to go. I'll go faster. And the biggest problem with this network here, the elevated network, is very extensive. You get lost. There's no way you can find your way to get from A to B. No way. You're lost, constantly lost. And I'm going to go very fast. Tai Kok Choi, exactly the same problem. Try to figure out how to get from Mongkok to the waterfront. You've got to find that footbridge, go across, find a footpath here, find into the building, find that footbridge here, get across here, find the footbridge here, go down the road here, take that footbridge here, and get down to the waterfront. Try to find that. It's impossible unless you live there and you know what to do. I have been given short time. The only thing I'm going to point out, when we build new roads, in Kai Tak, for example, look what we do to the pedestrian environment. People live here, the beautiful waters and future desire is here, and see what we do by the amount of road we're going to build there for the Central Kowloon route. 20 hectares of no man's land. I'm not going to go through these details. I'll be given my time here. I'm just going to point out some other problems on our streets levels if we want to improve things. We allow new buildings to be built here at North Point. The oil depot, the oil street redevelopment. We originally were able to walk the street here. We now put fences here, allow the cars to go in, and force the pedestrians to do a detour. Now, this is Argyle Street. Look at the little girl. Look at her feet, and look what she does to avoid the taxi. Okay? Look at Mom and her little boy, and look what she does to avoid this BMW. All right? Fighting is what we're forced to do. Look left, look right. No right for the pedestrians, right for the cars. This is from the rooftop. Actually, every government official working in North Point government offices walks this from the NTR station. That's Model Lane. This is the main pedestrian link along King's Road. And I'm here crossing the road. Next to me is an old lady. And you can see that this is the line we're walking, except there's a taxi who pushes us away. And you just go back to the design here. I'm telling the drivers here, go fast around the corner. Don't worry, don't worry, don't worry, go fast. This is the design of our junctions. This is what we do against pedestrian in favor of the cars. Tell the cars to get around the corner quick. Absurd. I have no idea why anybody in Hong Kong would accept this kind of behavior from their government. This is criminal. I think this is totally unacceptable turning corner. This is called a turning lane. It's to improve the capacity. It's completely unnecessary on this junction, and it's anti-pedestrian in the biggest possible way. So, government, fix that. But this is an attitude, and we have to find a way of addressing it. Obstructions on the street. We put railings, and railings become clothes hangers and cabinets. So everywhere we put a railing, we just create an excuse for creating more obstructions on our streets. So railings are bad in many ways. We put, I'm not going to go into this, but here, public space, we've asked I-Square to set back the building, but we allow them to have events, and events are done at night when everybody wants to go to that space. Excuse me, we ask you to set back that building. Seats, there are no seats in our city. This is at I-Square. So we allow events, we've created more space. No benches. Yep, 1 minute to go. I go very quick. Our tourists at the waterfront, our tourists at the Golden Bohemia Square. No seats. #1 tourist destination, Hong Kong Island. No seats. We put our own seats. Go at any housing estate. Or at the bus stops. Go at any bus stop in the new territories. How ridiculous is this in a city of this wealth and richness? Okay, school benches have an extra use, and you're not allowed to lie down anywhere. All right, and this is in the shopping malls. So shopping malls, I mean, it's commercial space, so we don't want anybody to sit anywhere either, so there's no space to sit. Toilets. I am abhorred by these comments about our mainland visitors having kids pee in the street. My daughter, 3 years old, when she gives me a warning that she got to pee, she got to pee. I am not giving any time. The amount of public toilets available in Hong Kong is minimal. It's because you and I live here for such a long time, we know that we can climb into a hotel, shopping mall, we can know where we're going to go. But somebody who's visiting has no idea the kids got to pee. Stop complaining on the internet about mainlanders having the kids pee in the street. Unless you give them toilets, then you can start complaining. Wayfinding is a big problem. This is an MTR map in the Tsim Sha Tsui, but they forgot to put 2 maps in there. This is the tunnel to Sun Plaza, it's not on their map. This is the footbridges to the tunnels, it's time out. So I'm just pointing this last point. The advertisement is right on top of the Highways Department tunnel network as an extension of that. We got mapping problems. Ladies and gentlemen, thank you very much for allowing me to entertain you. Thank you.